All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the channel. I am Joseph P, and today we are going to fix college football. Now, it has been a long time. About 4 years ago, I posted a video and it absolutely blew up. 170K views, so thank you for that. But I think it blew up because we just got into the heart of things of what is going on in our sport that we know and love. We talked about it all. We got into things like the transfer portal and NIL, which were new at the time. We even discussed what would an optimized college football alignment look like. And it got a little crazy. We had North Dakota State in the power conference, but today I'm back with you because I believe that I have created the perfect structure for college football. Let's get into it. So right now we got a lot of problems in our sport, and I'm going to start off with conferences because it's just a mathematical travesty. You think about it, with 16, 18 teams in the conference, it's extremely rare to see your school win a conference championship. If you're lucky, it'd be once in your childhood. And that means that we've lost a lot of tradition. There's a lot of rivalries that have come and gone. You know, West Virginia versus Pittsburgh, Texas Tech versus Texas. There's just a lot that we're seeing lost. That means also that there's this talk of loss of meaning, right? Out of conference games don't matter. Indiana proved its point. They didn't play anybody and they won a national championship. Winning your conference, it's kind of an afterthought. It really doesn't play a whole lot into the grand scheme of things. And conference championships, the actual game, it's kind of viewed as an inconvenience because while two teams that are probably in the running for the playoff are playing, somebody might be off to the side benefiting because they don't have to risk getting another loss. That leads us to a playoff debate that's very, very ambiguous and hard to understand because with 18 teams in the conference and only 9 conference games, you don't have everybody playing everybody. That means that it's not actually proven out on the field. We can't see exact dots connect between what you do on the field and the results that it causes. We get this backroom debate between this committee that nobody gets to watch, nobody gets to see, and so it just leaves us in a really weird spot where we just don't really see how it all plays out. And there's this conversation of how does the G5 fit in all of this, right? I'm a big believer that you can't have the Power 5 without the G5, but it really feels like right now they're being a little bit overvalued in the sport. And so we want to keep them involved. We want to give them even more purpose in the sport, but we don't want to have that at the sacrifice of the power schools, which are playing a tougher schedule. So, and then finally, we have this talk of expansion. It's all over the news right now. You can see it on the left there. There's talk of 16, 24 teams, and everybody's going, what's this going to mean for our regular season? And so I want to propose the question of how could we expand the playoff without reducing meaning of the regular season? So let's get into it. What is this perfect solution that I'm talking about? Well, first off, the conferences. We would have 7 power conferences with 10 teams each. That's right, it's going to be consistent, where we have the Big 10, the Big East, the ACC, the SEC, the Big 12, and the Southwest Conference. If you don't recognize that last name, I'll explain that in a minute. So we're going to have a traditional structure here. Okay, in my last video, we got a little crazy. We had like all these brand new names, the Northwoods Conference, the New England Conference. We're not going to do that here. We're keeping the old faithful that we know. And we're going to add, because we're going to 10 teams in each of these conferences, that means there's going to be some subtle changes, but I promise you they're going to be logical and they're going to make sense. Because these power conferences have 10 teams each, that means they're going to play 9 conference games, all right? So everybody's playing everybody, true king of the hill style. We're going to have 3 out-of-conference games for a total of 12 regular season games. That means that I, as emperor of college football, am going to require everybody to play one Power 7 team. Sorry, Indiana, you got to do it. There's going to be some purpose behind it. I promise you it's going to be worth it. The top 2 teams from each conference will go to a conference championship game. Now, I know that could create some groans, but I promise you they're going to have purpose. Now, group conferences, what are they going to be doing? It's going to be a little more of an NFL style, where we're going to have 4 mega conferences with 16 to 18 teams each. They're going to be broken up into geographic divisions, north, south, east, west, all right? So there's going to be 3 of them that have 16 teams. That'll be the MAC, CUSA, and Sun Belt. They're each going to have 2 8-team divisions. So they're going to play 7 conference games, which means you play everybody in your division, with 4 out-of-conference games for a total of 11 regular season games. The Mountain West is going to have 18 teams, so they're going to have divisions of 9 schools, and they'll play 8 conference games. So again, you're playing everybody in your division with 3 out-of-conference games. They will play a total of 11 regular season games. You might notice a difference between the Power and the Group. Group's playing 11, Power's playing 12. I'll explain that in a minute. Of course, the winners of the divisions from each of these group conferences will go to their conference's conference championship game, which leads us to the playoff. So how is this going to be structured? Well, it's going to be an 8-team playoff. You can kind of see the layout on the right, but I'll explain it on the left. The 7 Power Conference Championships are going to automatically qualify. So win your conference and you are in. This does something here where conference championship games now act as play-in. Okay, they suddenly have a meaning, which means effectively we've got 14 Power Conference berths. That's 2 out of every 10 Power teams. That's a ton of engagement and involvement. Really, that's expansion without loss. We just made winning your conference matter. We just made more teams get plugged in and get involved. We just made every step of the season matter. Now, what's going to happen with that 8th spot? Well, it's going to go to a group school, but they're going to have to work for it a lot more than they used to. So they're already playing in larger conferences where they got to, go through a lot more to get to their conference championship. But then the 4 group champions, the winners of those conference championship games, are going to go to what's called the G4 playoff, where this will act as a play-in for the 8th CFP spot. Okay, they're really going to have to work for it. The winner is going to be crowned the G4 national champion, and they will get the bid in the playoff. So, a little bit on this for a second. I just want to talk about North Dakota State. Think about this. They for years have dominated the FCS, won many national championships, and now they're moving up to the Mountain West and the FBS. By doing that, they have completely sacrificed their ability to win a national championship. It's true. These group of schools have no way to actually win, the crowning achievement of the sport. And I think that's a really sad thing. By having this structure, we now give these group schools purpose, something to play for that then can lead into the greater level. And so I just love that. I love keeping that engagement at all levels of the sport. Now, this is why they're only playing 11 regular season games in the group schools, because now they're with this G4 playoff. That means that they're going to have a maximum of 17 games that they can play. So I don't want to make their season go too long. And obviously the Power 7 is still going to have an opportunity to play 16 games, which is what they can do right now. Now, how's the seeding going to work? Well, this is where we're going to give some value to the out-of-conference games, because we're going to use an average of a computer ranking and a committee ranking. So we make sure we value that strength of schedule and playing some tough out-of-conference games. And then we're going to have the committee ranking because we want to keep a human element to this. We don't want it to just be a computer deciding. And I think it'd be really entertaining to have a televised discussion. No more closed-door deals. We're going to see exactly what the conversation is. And I think you probably should have a representative from every conference. Now, what does this fix? Well, first off, in the conferences, we're going to get back to regional, traditional conferences with some slight new improvements. These large group conferences means we're really going to refine these group schools and make them work for it. We're going to know who is best. Now, because the schedules are going to have you play everybody, right? If you're in a power conference, you're playing everybody in your conference. If you're in a group conference, you're playing everybody in your division. We're going to know who's the best. This is true King of the Hill style, as I said earlier. So this brings meaning to every part of the season. You're going to want to play good out-of-conference games and win them because that's going to maximize your ranking. It's also not going to knock you out of the playoff, right? That's why Indiana doesn't want to play them right now, because they're like, well, hey, that could hurt us. Well, no, not anymore. It's only going to help. The conference games, again, you want to win them. Even if you know you're in the conference championship, you still want to win because you want to maximize your seeding. You want to get to the conference championship so you can win your CFP bid. And then for the group play-in, obviously I've talked about it before. What's the value there? Well, now they have a crowning achievement they can aspire towards and then get a spot in the CFP. So that's the new college football playoff. But let's talk about what these conferences would look like. Now, I mentioned earlier you're going to have 7 power conferences with 10 teams each. 4 group conferences with 16 or 18 teams each. So what will these look like? Let's start off with the Big Ten, where you would have Minnesota, Wisconsin, Northwestern, Illinois, Notre Dame, Purdue, Indiana, Ohio State, Michigan, and Michigan State. Very familiar. Obviously, the only major talking point is Notre Dame. I'm a big believer Notre Dame belongs here. They're in the heartland of the Big Ten, right in the middle. They have rivalries with Michigan, Michigan State, Purdue, and Indiana. If they want to play USC, perfect. Just make that your protected out-of-conference game. The Big East, we're bringing it back, where we have Boston College, Syracuse, Penn State, Pittsburgh, West Virginia, Maryland, Virginia Tech, Cincinnati, Kentucky, and Louisville. I love the look of this conference. I know it's probably the weakest power conference as it stands, but I think everybody can agree this is a great fit. Penn State's going to carry the banner on the onset, but there's a lot of other schools here who are sleeping giants. West Virginia's been great in the past. Louisville's been great in the past. Virginia Tech, Cincinnati made a playoff, right? I think the other big talking point here is probably Kentucky. I know moving them from the SEC is a little bit polarizing, but I think we all can agree pairing them back up with Louisville is just a beautiful thing. That's their biggest rival. Let's put them in the same conference. Having them, Cincinnati, and Louisville all in the same conference too, that's kind of cool. Nice little love triangle there. And you could say the same for Pittsburgh, Penn State, and West Virginia. They fit well together. Love having them there. And even West Virginia and Virginia Tech, I think they are kind of similar style schools, and I think they're a good fit together in the same conference. So I really love the look of this. I think this is how the Big East should be. Next in the ACC, we've got Virginia, North Carolina, Duke, NC State, Wake Forest, Clemson, Florida State, UCF, USF, and Miami. This is truly just a Southern Atlantic Coast Conference, right? No Cal, no Stanford playing in the Atlantic Coast Conference, and so I love the look of this. Really, the only notable changes are adding in UCF and USF, but I think we can all agree those two schools, they're big, they make sense, it fits really well. Next in the SEC, we have Tennessee, South Carolina, Georgia, Georgia Tech, Auburn, Alabama, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, LSU, and Florida. Your traditional SEC schools with the addition of Georgia Tech. Now, some of you might be asking why. Well, because Georgia Tech was actually a founding member of the SEC. They were in the conference from 1933 to 1964. They won 5 conference championships, 3 national championships in 1950s. And so I love bringing them back here. Their biggest rival's Georgia. They play them every year, so why not just put them right back in the conference where they fit so beautifully geographically? Next, the Southwest Conference. For those of you that are maybe in our younger audience, well, you may not know that the Southwest Conference was actually a pillar of college football for many years, 1914 to 1996, 82 years. This was viewed as a power conference. A lot of national championships came from this conference. The schools that were in it was Arkansas, Houston, SMU, Texas A&M, TCU, Baylor, Texas, and Texas Tech. We're going to add in Arizona and Arizona State to pull the Southwest Conference even further southwest. This will be a really fun conference. Get all those Texas schools running and shooting against each other, a lot of pass yards. It's going to be beautiful. Really love this here. I think there probably could be some debate about does Arkansas belong. I'm going with tradition, okay? They were in this conference for many years. Yes, you could argue they could be in the Big 12, but I feel like this is the best fit for them right here. Next, the Big 12, where we have Colorado, Nebraska, Kansas State, Kansas, Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, Iowa State, Iowa, Missouri, and Vanderbilt. So what you got here is basically the old Big 8 plus Iowa and Vandy. Now I know pulling Iowa from the Big 10, they're a founding member of that conference, but I think we all can agree if you were just going to build things from scratch, this is probably a better fit for Iowa, right? We're pairing them up with their big foe, Iowa State, and then Nebraska, who they've generated a really good rivalry with in recent years. They're more of a Great Plains school. They fit really well here with the rest of these, and I just love this. I think the bigger debate is probably on Vanderbilt. To me, Vandy's always felt like an outsider in the SEC. I know they had a great year this past year, but I love seeing them here. I think they could do really well. I think the NIL era is going to be good to them. And so Love pairing them up here. They might turn into, maybe a top 2, top 3 team perennially against, maybe Oklahoma and Nebraska here. So a lot of opportunity. I love seeing this. And then finally, the Pac-10. We even have a logo for them because this is what the conference used to be called. So we have Washington, Washington State, Oregon, Cal, Stanford, UCLA, USC, BYU, and Utah. Beautiful, right? I mean, this is basically the old Pac-10. We've just swapped out Arizona and Arizona State for Utah and BYU. It fits perfectly. I love it. I think it's awesome. And so this will be a lot of fun. Probably the biggest talking point about this conference is, why would it, if it didn't work before, why would it work now, right? They clearly couldn't make enough money. Again, this is where I think it's a good spot to talk about how this different structure would really keep fans engaged. Think about it. 2 of these schools are going to go to the conference championship every year. One of them is going to go to the playoff every year. That's going to keep a lot of engagement, keep a lot of people interested, feeling plugged into the sport. Even if you finish in the middle of the conference, you're really only 3 spots away from the conference championship. So that's a lot of engagement. That's a lot of people feeling like, hey, we're not too far off. And so I think you'd see a lot more viewership and fan engagement from the Pac-10. Now, just a little quick look at how this fits geographically, because I think it's just really cool. The Big Ten, the Big East, repping the Northeast. The Atlantic Coast Conference is handling the Atlantic Coast. The Southeastern Conference in the Southeast, Southwest, and the Pac-10. It's a Pacific Conference. I mean, it just makes sense, right? It all fits so beautifully. Now, on to the group conferences where we have in the Mountain West, in the East Division, North Dakota State, South Dakota State, we're bringing them up, Wyoming, Colorado State, Air Force, New Mexico State, UTEP, and UTSA. In the West, we have Boise State, Utah State, Nevada, UNLV, Sacramento State, who is moving up to the FBS this year, Fresno State, San Jose State, San Diego State, and Hawaii. It's perfect, right? Pretty much just, if you're east of the Rockies, you're in the East. West of the Rockies, you're in the West. I think it's awesome. I think it fits really well. I think this would work out well for North Dakota State and South Dakota State. They'd fit really well here. Next to the MAC, we've got in the north, Central Michigan, Western Michigan, Eastern Michigan, Bowling Green, Toledo, Akron, Kent State, and Buffalo. In the south, Ball State, Northern Illinois, Miami of Ohio, Marshall, Western Kentucky, Middle Tennessee, and App State. Now, someone can fact check me on this, but I'm pretty certain that every single one of these schools has actually been in the MAC at one point or another. So that's interesting, and I think it all fits quite well. So we put Northern Illinois in the south because I wanted to keep Bowling Green and Toledo together. Apparently they're rivals, so not much more to be said there. In the CUSA, we would have in the north, UMass, Army, UConn, Temple, Rutgers, Navy, James Madison, and Old Dominion. In the south, Liberty, Charlotte, East Carolina, Coastal Carolina, Georgia State, Georgia Southern, FAU, and FIU. So a great, very geographic conference. Probably the only thing of note here would be Rutgers. Yes, I did pull them down from the Big Ten into the CUSA, or this could be the American if you want. But why? Well, many people might not know this, but Rutgers is actually in a world of hurt right now. A recent report came out. Rutgers is in close to $500 million in debt. They're really struggling to keep up in the Big Ten. I think this is the better spot for them. They're a better fit with the Temples of the world, and who knows? Maybe they could be a staple in the conference championship here and compete for that playoff spot in the G4 playoffs. So, I think this is a better place for them. We go over to the Sun Belt, where in the East we have Missouri State, Arkansas State, Memphis, Jacksonville State, Kennesaw State, UAB, Southern Miss, Troy, South Alabama. And in the West, Tulsa, North Texas, Louisiana Tech, Louisiana Monroe, Louisiana, Tulane, Sam Houston State, Texas State, and Rice. So, it looks good. I think the biggest probably debate is going to come from Tulane and Memphis fans who feel like they belong in one of the power conferences. And that's just where I made the decision that I feel like they're just not quite there. Yes, Tulane, I love your uniforms, I love your logo, but and you've definitely competed well, but I feel like you're right there with the Boise States of the world, where it's just like, hey, you're at the top of the G4 level. You're probably going to be a staple in your conference championship and be competing for that playoff spot consistently. So I think that's a really great place to be. So just a quick look at these conferences and how they stack up, looking at the ESPN FPI computer ranking just for some relative comparison. So you can see a much bigger difference between the Big East and the Mountain West than like the Big East and the ACC. Yes, there's some disparity across the board and amongst the power conferences, but truly I think you would see this start to balance out. Even in that Big East, a lot of those schools have competed at a high level, and same with the ACC. So I think you'd see this start to adjust and move around as recruits would say, hey, there's some good opportunities to get to the playoff in the Big East and the ACC. So I think this would really, really look good in a few years. But even now, you can see there's clearly an upper echelon with those power conferences compared to the group. Now, just to run a quick simulation of what this would look like. So your conference championships out of the G4 conferences, you'd have UTSA versus Boise State. And according to ChatGPT, that would go to Boise State 31-24. In the MAC, you'd have Toledo beating Ohio 27-23. In the CUSA, James Madison taking it over East Carolina 34-20. And then in the Sun Belt, Memphis beating North Texas in another nail-biter, 38-31. That leaves us with a G4 playoff of James Madison versus Memphis, where, we get an upset. Memphis winning 31-27. On the other side of the bracket, Toledo versus Boise State, and Boise State takes it 30-20. That leaves us with a G4 national championship between Memphis and Boise State, where the winner is Boise State, 34-27. Boise State locks up that CFP spot. Now, for your conference championships in the power leagues, you've got Penn State versus Louisville, where Penn State takes it 30-21. In the ACC, we get our first blowout. Miami destroys USF 49-12. In the SEC, Georgia beats out Ole Miss. Ole Miss beats Georgia 39-34 in a nail-biter. Indiana beats Ohio State 13-10. In the Southwest Conference, Texas upsets Texas Tech 37-27. And in the Big 12, Vanderbilt, we see our second blowout where Oklahoma takes it to Vanderbilt 41-17 in an upset, actually. And then in the Pac-10, Oregon beats Utah 28-24. So again, I picked these teams to go to these conference championships based upon their ESPN FPI ranking so we could get a good relative evaluation. And then I asked ChatGPT for the winners. So this is how our playoff would look in this perfected system. Indiana would beat Boise State in the first round 28-24, a little closer than I would expect it. I mean, Indiana did beat Alabama 38-3, so maybe ChatGPT is being a little bit nice to Boise State here. Ole Miss would lose to Texas in an upset 31-34, so another nail-biter. And we get our third close game. Miami loses to Oklahoma 33-28 in a close one. And then Oregon, once again, another one-score game. All the games in the first round, one score. Penn State loses to Oregon 30-24. That leaves us with a Final Four of Indiana versus Texas, where Texas pulls off an upset versus Indiana, and Oklahoma upsets Oregon 34-30. That means that we got a national championship of a Red River shootout between Texas and Oklahoma, where Texas takes it 35-31, leaving Texas as our national champion in this simulated version of our college football playoff. So that's all I've got for you guys. I just appreciate you watching. Please, please, please join the conversation in the comments. I want to hear everything you guys have to say. I believe this is perfected. I believe this is exactly how it should be. And maybe there's some slight things you could tweak, but I think we've optimized it as best as we could. So let me know what you think. Thank you for your time and have an awesome, awesome week.